Jay Gabler, Duluth News Tribune arts and entertainment reporter, back with another special episode of the Duluth News Tribune Minute, taking a few minutes to read my column for this week. My column is called Front Row Seat, and this week's topic is Phantom of the Opera on Broadway. You're thinking, wait, why are we talking about Broadway? We're in Duluth, Minnesota. Well, listen on and you'll find out what the local ties are. There are a dozen currently sitting members of the U.S. House of Representatives who hadn't even been born when Phantom of the Opera opened on Broadway in 1988. When Phantom came to America, neither MC Hammer nor Billy Ray Cyrus had yet graced the Duluth Arena stage, but both soon would. The Minnesota North Stars were still our state's team in the National Hockey League. Now, just over 35 years later, Phantom is dropping its last chandelier on the Great White Way. The COVID-19 pandemic finally claimed Broadway's longest-running show. After lockdown ended, the audiences that had sustained the show since Ronald Reagan was president finally petered out. Sarah Lawrence, who along with her husband, Callan Metz, is artistic director of Lyric Opera of the North, believes the musical has remained so popular for so long because it delivers the kind of classic, larger-than-life musical drama associated with its subject. It's why people love opera too, said Lawrence, noting that Phantom is not a true opera, but rather a musical about an opera company. She continued, "The size of the production is so impressive, and so you can go 10 times and see something new every time." Lawrence knows what she's talking about. She spent several years performing in Phantom of the Opera, including in the starring role of Christine Daae. Though Lawrence wasn't on Broadway, in the early 2000s she joined the musical's national tour and later a Las Vegas production. She said, "It's impossible not to get the chills when that overture starts and the scene changes from the auction to the opera company rehearsal. It started with two famous people. It was written for Sarah Brightman and Michael Crawford, but after that, it was just about the show." Marnie Robb has performed the role of Christine over 3,000 times on Broadway and elsewhere. She's a member of the current Broadway cast in a swing capacity. Robb wrote in an email to the News Tribune that Phantom of the Opera on Broadway has always felt like a permanent fixture. That's crazy when you consider that most Broadway shows run less than a year. Robb and Lawrence worked together on Phantom and became really, really good pals, said Lawrence. Robb has previously directed and sang for Lyric Opera of the North, and she'll be returning to direct the company's production of Cavalleria Rusticana on June 9th and 11th. Given the Duluth Company's close ties to Phantom, board member Annie Dugan thought it only fitting for Lyric Opera of the North to host a local party on the final night of the musical's Broadway run. That's this coming Sunday. A farewell to Phantom will take place at Gracelawn's Moorish Room. "I think it's an interesting thing for our community to have that connection back to the Broadway show," said Dugan. "And I think some people might be Phantom of the Opera or Broadway mainstays, but they might feel like opera with a capital O isn't for them. And I think that leap isn't that far." Numerous Lyric Opera of the North affiliates, including Lawrence, Metz, and company founder Ruth Jacobson, performed in Phantom of the North Shore, a parody that played in the eponymous Duluth Theater in 2005. At the time, the News Tribune explained, "In the musical, representatives of Cinema Omni Megaplex Corporation and the architectural firm of Just Plain and Ugly plan to tear down the North Shore Theater. The performers on the North Shore's stage are told they have 2 hours to get out." Written by Gene Stromick, Margie Preuss, and composer Tyler Kaiser for the company Colder by the Lake, Phantom of the North Shore was a comedy, but one that touched on the real-life threats to Duluth's historic theaters. This was before any decisions had been made about what was going to happen with the North Shore, remembered Lawrence. People didn't know if it was going to get torn down. There was a lot of, it's falling to ruins, but of course, lots of people wanted to save it, and thank goodness they did. At least one hit song from Phantom of the North Shore will be performed at the farewell party, promises a news release about Sunday's event. In addition to music, there will be plenty of fan-based frivolity, including a photo booth and chandelier piñata. "We're not performing the Phantom of the Opera, we're celebrating it," clarified Lawrence. "All I can say is, there's some fun surprises in store." Dugan had never seen Phantom until recently, when she attended the Broadway production with Lawrence and other friends. Dugan learned, she said, why the show has appealed to so many people for so long, despite a potentially off-putting premise. She said, "When you look at the face value of the story, you're like, this guy is kind of a creepy jerk that's basically preying on this woman. She was talking about the Phantom, a masked musical genius who's obsessed with opera singer Christine. The musical is based on Gaston Leroux's 1910 novel. The musical ends with a moment of redemption, Dugan discovered. She said, "It doesn't excuse the problematic nature of the story, but it does sort of explain why it's relevant now." Phantom aside, Lawrence is glad that grand musicals with large orchestras may be coming back into vogue after decades during which many musicals have operated with lean arrangements, whether due to artistic or budgetary considerations. Sweeney Todd just opened on Broadway with an orchestra of 26, observed Lawrence. It'll give people chills. It's a fantastic score, it's a great musical, a terrific cast. Work in the Phantom Pit has sustained musicians for decades, in a world where such reliable work can be hard to come by. When original director Hal Prince was still with us to speak at milestone celebrations, he used to love sharing the number of people in all the different departments that Phantom has employed over the years, wrote Rob. It's literally thousands of jobs. Mostly, I am extremely grateful to have been a part of it for so long. If Phantom has helped introduce some musical theater fans to the world of opera, Sunday's Duluth celebration may help make Northlanders aware of how much nationally known talent performs here. Lawrence said, "One of my very best friends, a Phantom I worked with for a long time, has come out here twice to sing leading tenor roles in our operas." She continued, "We're not paying what someone gets paid to sing Phantom on the national tour. People just say, I'd love to come there. I'd love to spend a month in Duluth and help our friends build an opera company in this sort of unlikely place." Tickets for Farewell to Phantom will be available online through Saturday, and then some tickets will be available at the door on Sunday. That's this week's column. Next week, I'll be back after speaking with author and the partner of the author of a book about a beautiful Duluth relationship. Until then, I'm Jay Gabler, Duluth News Tribune.